Shalom. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Vladimir. We're all here today to talk about sales, and I think it's a very important topic because it's critical to running any business of any kind. So hopefully we'll learn a lot with you two today. And what's interesting about sales, I think, is that it encompasses a very broad range of different activities, different tasks. And so the focus today will be on the tools and processes to kind of build and blend those activities and tests together. So how can you build the best processes to get the best sales outcome in your organization? But before diving into this topic, I'd like for you to introduce yourself for those who do not know either you personally or your companies. So both what you've done in your past and then the companies you work at.
Hi, welcome. I'm Shalom Malka. I'm the head of sales Southern Europe at Aircall. I joined the company almost 4 years ago, and it was my first job. And this is really funny because I never studied sales. I came from a corporate finance background. And that means that anyone can become a good sales if you have the right mindset. Who knows Aircall? Wow, impressive.
You're doing a good job.
Indeed. So Aircall is what we are doing is very simple. We just try to remove this the desk phone. You all know in company those black box that you use to make and receive calls. We have just removed it and put it in the cloud. We have created an application on desktop and mobile to make and receive calls. And as it's a software, we can easily integrate it with all your business tools. So let's take, for example, a sales team. When you will receive a call on Aircall, you will have access to all the history of your lead, and all the calls will be automatically logged in the CRM with all the data available. So we just make the business phone system simple to set up and simple to integrate with no development. Aircall is a French startup which has been created 5 years ago. We are today 200 employees spread over 2 offices, Paris and New York, and we have raised in total $41 million.
Great. Thank you. My name is Bryant. I am the head of sales at Pipedrive. We are a global company as well, so we have offices in the Czech Republic, Prague, which is, I love Prague. We need one in Paris, because this is lovely. I'm completely enjoying my time here, so thank you for having me. So we've got Portugal, New York. We're opening up another one in Florida right now. We've got, like I said, the Czech Republic, London, and Estonia, which is where we are founded from. So we started almost 10 years ago. Pipedrive is a CRM tool, so we are the absolute first CRM tool that was built from a sales perspective. So our founder used to do sales and use some other CRM tools that probably you're very familiar with, and are also familiar that not a lot of people not a lot of people like to use them. And so he said, "The heck with this! I'm going to start my own CRM tool." So it's the actual very first CRM tool built from a sales perspective. So basically, if you guys are familiar with the UI of a lot of the CRM tools, we were the first one that had all of your deals available, and you could just drag them from stage to stage. Everyone has then since copied Pipedrive, so that's the best form of flattery, right? I've been doing startups over 20 years. Yep, I'm old. So it's great to see a lot of young, fresh faces of the future. So super excited and honored to be here and speak with you guys. So thank you so much. I've done some startups like Big Commerce, You Earned It, WP Engine. I don't know if you guys have heard these before, but definitely love sales, and I believe every single one of us in here is a salesperson. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're gonna have to sell your company to investors or to people or even to future employees, you're a salesperson. So.
Yeah, thank you very much to you too. There's something very interesting in both of what you said, You mentioned Pipedrive was built from a sales perspective. You also mentioned that Aircall can be used by sales teams. So I assume both of your own sales team within your sales organization at home, I would say, use your own products. Is there any kind of advantage, or what value can you derive by eating your own dog food and using your own software, in the perspective that sales is all about adding value to your client and to your final customer?
Yeah, we do. We absolutely use Pipedrive. I love to tell the story. I recently joined Pipedrive a little less than a year ago, and we used, in my prior company, a large CRM tool you guys are all probably very familiar with. And it was really funny. I felt like there was about 4 of my reps had a confession moment where they each called me individually, where I told them I was leaving and where I was going, and they each said, "Tara, I'm a Pipedrive customer." I was like, "What? You have another side job? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, no, I just run all of my deals in Pipedrive because it helps me. Like, I actually close deals because of Pipedrive, and then I put it in the other CRM tool that you make me use." And I was like, "Oh." And it's funny, I've told that story a few times now, and I just realized, guess, you know, not the smartest one in the room, but I just realized they were my top 4 reps. Isn't that funny? So we absolutely use our own tool because I love it. It's the only reason why I returned the recruiter's phone call when I saw Pipedrive. I'm like, I love Pipedrive. I always refer Pipedrive to people as a sales consultant. And I do that because it helps you close deals. It really, truly, it's the tool that salespeople want to use. And so we use it. Where the added value is, I think, and I'm sure you'll agree, is when you're helping people, right, when you're consulting with people and you use the tool, you know the challenges, because every tool has challenges, and you know the workarounds, you know the things that you can really get ahead of. So whenever you start to use something, you do a project and you've got to maybe do a assembly line of them, 5 or 6 of them. The first 2 always not so great, but as you get towards, you're like, man, this is the best one I did. So if we can have salespeople able to utilize that and know the tool and help you skip through the first couple that you're going to mess up anyways, then that's definitely added value. And we really want to help people to choose the best tool. So we absolutely use that for that benefit.
So I totally agree with Tara. It really helps our sales rep to have empathy. They can picture how their leads can use the system, and they can drive the story and have help in their sales pitch to really show the value that the system can bring to their customer. So this is the first thing. And the second one, which is really important also, is that we can get some daily feedbacks to our product and tech teams to improve the system. We are our first beta tester. We fix a lot of bugs quickly before going to production, so this is very helpful.
Yeah, and that's something that's very interesting, because I don't believe, and I'm sure you don't either, that sales teams should be siloed, but they have to interact with various stakeholders within the company. How do you push a sales team to interact with the rest of the other teams within the same company, with especially the customer, product team, developers? How do you manage that at Aircall, for instance?
Well, to push them, you need to put some processes. Then you can give some guidelines, but for them to really do it, you need to put in place some processes. And at Aircall, we did it with every department. You know, sales are this person who have trouble to go in the framework, so you really need them. And we have done it, for example, with the success team. Every time you close a good account, you need to have a kick-off call with the success team in order to pass on and make the right introduction. You also have to fill up in your CRM some information to make sure that they have access to the right info. We have done it also, for example, with the tech team. I remember at first, so the developers were developing some feature. We were asking them, yeah, this customer wants this feature. Can you please do something? I wasn't a product, so I was just drawing something, making the list of the features, and they were working on it. But it was actually at the end disconnected from what the customer really wanted. So we have created and reorganized the way they are working, and we have created some squads. And on each squad, you have a product manager who is in charge of a specific feature, specific part of the product. This product manager is working with a back-end, front-end developer, and we have put inside this squad a business team member who is giving feedbacks from the customers or the leads, and who is also providing information from the tech side to the business team.
Yeah, I think to agree, there's got to be a loop of communication. So one of the things that I like to put in place is we have a shared document, and so when the reps either win deals or lose deals because of certain features and functionalities, they have to quantify that. So they fill out, it takes less than a minute. Everything I ask the sales team has got to be less than a minute to do if it's outside of selling, by the way. That's just a little trick. So less than a minute, you know, drop downs, make it really simple for them. But you really want to make sure that you understand, you know, why did you win a deal? What was the feature functionality? What was important to them? The top 1 or 2 features. Why did you win over this competitor? And then more importantly, why did you lose, obviously, as well? And then we put a monetary value on that. And so that what we do is every month when I meet with our product team, I use this piece of data, I research, and I'm like, okay, here are the top 5 features of why we won deals, and here's the top 5 features why we lost deals or things we need to change, and then here's the monetary value. I think that's one thing that people miss on that, is put how much money was won or lost because of those product features. Because as much as product is amazing, you can't take a code and take it to a bank and cash it. So it all comes down to a monetary value, right? And so I've seen a lot of companies that will focus on some really cool features, and they're phenomenal, but the incremental revenue growth that they bring just isn't as substantial as maybe if you had focused and prioritized other features and functionalities. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's very, very insightful. It looks like both of you have very, very efficient sales organization, but taking a step back and coming back to the topic at hand today, building a sales organization that efficient is not an overnight job. So if you look back at either in your previous experience or what you've known at Aircall, what were some of the challenges of scaling the sales organization, and what key lessons could you share with the audience today?
So I really, when I speak, I really want to try to give you guys like nuggets you can actually take away. So how many people in here are running sales or teams or working heavily with sales teams? I want to make sure I'm speaking. Okay, so I'll go into a little bit of depth then, if that's okay. Because I think this is a really important piece of it. There's some mistakes that I see people make a lot, and there's some efficiencies that I think that you can do. So the number one thing is make sure you have a process. And the process, to what your point is, you're never going to get there. It's not a destination, it's a journey. So for teams that I've scaled that started with 2 people, and I've scaled to over 1,000, I was still fine-tuning that process the day I left, okay? So you never get there. So one is make sure you get a good process. We can go in depth that later if you want. The second thing is make sure you know what the DNA of your top sales reps are. So really strange thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with HubSpot, and Mark Rharbaoui used to be the CRO of them. He and I are very, very close friends and good collaborators. And I went and we were visiting one time, going over and sharing some of our best practices. And one of the things that he taught me was he had a scorecard, a weighted scorecard. And I kind of, took that idea and then spun it into my own. So I had a weighted scorecard of what I noticed my top reps were. Believe it or not, in the US, we have enterprise rental cars, and they produce great sales reps. I don't know why, but they do. And each company will be a little different. So when you go to another company, understand that there will be some similarities, but there are definitely some differences. So find out what the DNA is of your top reps, and then create an interview scorecard. Interviewing can be very emotional. You sit down with someone for a few seconds, you really like them, you're like, I'm gonna hire them, this person's gonna be great. But do they have the right skills? Do they have the right characteristics and background that you're looking for? So create a weighted scorecard, take the emotion out of it, and I do it on a 1 to scale 10, and then if they're a 7 or if they're a 7 and above, I'll hire them. If they're a 6.9 and below, I do not hire them, no matter how much I love them. And then the third thing is get the right comp plan. This is the thing that people mess up all the time. Your comp plan's got to have 3 things when you're scaling a team. It's got to be A, is it attainable? Don't make something crazy because you'll lose people. They'll lose, you know, the motivation in the middle of the month or wherever, however long your period is for quota attainment. So one, make it attainable. The second thing, make it easy to understand. I say salespeople, we're not the smartest people in the bunch, but we're damn near the hungriest. So make it easy to know that if it's a Friday at the end of the month or end of a quarter, end of the year, whatever it is, of your quota period, make sure that they know, I've already hit quota, but if I sell 2 more, I'm going to get an exponential amount of extra money. So make it really easy to understand. This eliminates, if you hit 100% of this, but you have to have so many annuals, and you have to have so many of this type of, don't do that. Okay, build that into their number, into their quota, don't build in the comp plan. The third thing is make sure it drives the right behavior, which ties into that second piece, right, of it being attainable. So if your behavior is you want them to talk to so many people, you want them to close a number of customers, you want them to have a certain revenue, a certain plan mix or product mix, make sure you build that into the quota. So just make it simple and make sure that, you know, that it drives the right behavior, that it's doing the behaviors you want. So those are my top 3 things to scale. So number 1, get your process down. Number 2, get your hiring to a method. And number 3, get the right comp plan.
So I totally agree with Tara. I will add one thing is patience. Make sure that when we try, like it's gonna take time. You're gonna fail. And you will adapt, but make sure that when you choose a path, you take the right amount of time to make sure to validate or to reject this hypothesis. So measure it and do not stop your effort after 2 days. Like you won't see the results in 2 days. If you put processes, it will take up to 1 month to make sure that it is well expected, and people have to do mistakes so you can correct it to make sure it will be applied. So this is the only thing, like it's not going to be done in a wink.
And just to add to that, really, and another good point is listen to your reps. I think sales reps, we get a bad rep of being complainers, and we are. But listen to your sales reps. Like, let them feel collaborative. Let them feel like they're part of these decisions. They're part of the process building. Because if you can get their buy-in, you can get them using it, then you're going to see much better results. And you'll be able to get the good data to judge and see, where do we pivot? Where do we need to make some changes to make it more efficient?
Tara mentioned those scorecards and in the top performers within the sales reps. So perhaps there are some salespeople who are individual contributors in the audience. Is there anything that, in your opinion, top performers do differently than others? And is it a matter of better tools, better processes, people who have integrated kind of a scientific approach to it, or are they just more talented?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's that science and art, right? I think a lot of things are either one or the other, and I believe sales is both. So I always say sales is easy. It's a numbers game, right? The more people you talk to, the more you're going to sell. It's just really hard to do every single day. So it's easy and hard. And so to answer that question, I think the top sales reps are always going to be really persistent. You know, no is just not right now. Or no is, you mean you want me to call you tomorrow? No is it's not a good time right now. So persistency, I think, is an overall characteristic that you're always going to see with top reps. Another one is activity. Like, are you efficient with your time? Because then again, that goes back to the data piece of it, right? It's just a numbers game, guys. Now, the art of it is quality. I always say get good sales. Get good sales training. I use a company, since we're talking about tools, I use a company called the Paul Branson Training. And he goes all around the world. We're actually doing a huge training class just on Monday. We're all meeting up in Lisbon. All of my teams are coming over from all over the world, including I also have customer success teams. And you've got to get good quality training. You've got to have a methodology, a foundation to which you're going to coach from, right? Your top sports people, they always practice. Always. Every single sport, they practice. They go back, they watch their videos, they go back and they're the Monday quarterbacks. You need to do that as well. So you need to listen to their phone calls, really coach. So that's the art of it. Get good sales training, get a good foundation, and those are the people who are always wanting to do better. People are always trying to figure out a better way of doing it, having good communications with their leaders. Those are your top reps that I see.
That's very interesting. And so in the same dimension, Shalom, perhaps you've been at Aircall since the very early days, and I'm sure when you were building this sales organization, you had to help those top performers, those salespeople who were experts in the field, transition into leadership role. How do you approach that? How do you make very operational people better managers to carry on building the sales team?
Well, I actually never had the chance to promote someone as manager for now, but I can take my example, and one of the which has been done by my manager, it's they give me some room to express my skills and my leadership, because one thing you need to do when you are a manager is to transmit your own ambition to your team, and this is what will motivate them and will help them to be resilient. You need to pass on your experience, and this is all work with ambition and having the space to express it.
Tara, perhaps?
Yeah, so I'm not, your top sales reps are usually not your best leaders. So always remember that, please. If there's a few failures that I see, that would be one of my top 3 that I see a lot of companies do is, Bob's our #1 seller, let's promote him to a manager, we're going to keep him. Usually the characteristics and the skills, and I call them your motivation languages that make you a top rep, do not translate into a top leader. Leaders are, and I know this is so terrible to say, but it's rare. I like to think that I was a top performer, and I hope I'm an okay leader. So it can happen, right? It does happen. But when you're looking for good leaders, what I would say is find people who really are motivated by helping other people. So is that what motivates them to sell? Or are they competitive? Or is it they're money hungry? That's fine. I mean, those are the ones you want, right? You want competitiveness, you want the full spectrum, but those don't typically make top leaders, okay? So really know your reps really well. The other thing, just I like to add to that, is I call them projects. So people who haven't been leaders before, anybody, whether you're in product or marketing or sales or anything, someone who's never done the job before, I call them projects. They're great. You have to have projects. We all had that job for the first time. We've all been there. There's always a first time for everything. But what I say is, of your entire staff, you should only have 20% are projects, which means it's great to hire within, it's great to promote within, but you can only have 20% of that role. So if you're a manager of managers, then you need to only have 20% of your staff that's actually done it for the first time. Otherwise, doesn't work out well.
That's very, very interesting. And so in the same kind of space, while building your sales organization, while scaling your sales team, what are, according to you, the critical tools and processes that really need to be there? You mentioned doing the hiring properly, the processes, but within that, what tools really fit in your framework and that you couldn't see being avoided?
Well, definitely Aircall and Pipedrive needs to be implemented. So, more seriously, there is the CRM for sure needs to be implemented, and you need to make sure also that this CRM will be able to communicate with other tools from other departments. You need to be able to have some integration in order to make sure that the information will pass on between all the different departments. Then, according to your level of development, you can add some sales automation tools. For example, for your SDR, sales development representative, who will hunt some accounts. You can make them provide them some tools to be able to organize themselves and make their life easier by put some automation in the cadences of the emails or the calls. For the processes, this was for the tool, but for processes, I would say one thing that will help you is that we were talking about the top performers. Make sure that every win, every top performer is celebrated, and it's well known, because it's helped to motivate others to achieve that and to join them in the top performer list.
Yeah, agreed. I'm actually writing a book about that. I think one of the things as a leader, I think your number one responsibility as a leader is to ignite motivation. I do not believe that it is your responsibility to motivate. I think motivation comes within. But as leaders, it's to understand what language of all of your reps, what motivates them, right? Is it competitiveness? Is it money? I think there's 5 of them. And so I think that's a really good point. You have to know that. And so people who are competitive, they want to be celebrated. Or words of affirmation, they want to be celebrated. So that's a really good point. So for tools, I think obviously, and I'm not saying it's because I work for Pipedrive, but the number one tool you have to get is a good way to track your sales leads. This is the number one thing as a sales consultant. I come into very small companies or in very large companies as well. And the number one thing I see is people lose deals. Blows my mind. So there's, you've got leads in there, you've got prospects in there, and, we're not following up with them on the right amount of time. So from a tool standpoint, I think it's really important to find a CRM tool that your sales team will want to use. So if you have an existing sales team, I would let maybe a few of them try a couple and get their feedback again, feeling like they're part of this, that collaboration and part of the decision, I think is really important. Some of those tools that we like to use, so when you're looking for any tool, I don't care what it is, make sure it has a really good API, a really good open API that has tons of integrations already. One of the things at Pipedrive is we have close to 2,000 integrations, Aircall being one of our top ones. We use Aircall, we love it. It's a great, the tools work so well together. The call comes up, like it recognizes the phone number, it comes up, it automatically creates the next task. It's gonna recognize you on a call or a meeting or whatever. It's really cool. So I think that those are really important to make sure. Another thing is we use Zapier, so they do a lot of the automations. I feel like we were talking about this right before we came on. So AI is probably going to get a question on what we're going to get. We're ready for them. I know that AI has been around for a long time, but I feel like it's really coming into the creative parts of the business. So marketing and sales, I think, is definitely the last couple years. It's a big transition on that. So get some good tools that have that. So we use ExecVision with Aircall. ExecVision is it's a recording. So again, that coaching piece of it, of always making the art of your reps better. It coaches it. You can put in ahead of time like some keywords. Maybe you want them to sell you want them talking about a certain feature all the time or sell a certain plan. It'll actually judge who talks more in the conversation. It'll judge the pauses in between. I love it. And for us, it works well because we're an international company. We've got over 85,000 customers all over the world. So for us, we've got to have all these different languages. So ExecVision does 5 different languages, French being one of them. So it translates that, puts it into the notes automatically. It works really well. So those are a couple that we love and we find really, really helpful.
That's a lot of insights here. One thing that I'd like to mention is the potential impact of AI. And to give some perspective to this last question before we start taking on questions from the audience, do you see any trends in the future of sales in the tools and processes aspect? Or better yet, if you were to start your career as a sales person right now, is there something that you would definitely do right from the beginning? What advice could you give to those people beginning their journey as salespeople?
Well, so regarding the trends, definitely AI is important and it's coming. We can see it. We are currently testing the same kind of tools that Tara mentioned earlier with our sales in the US. We are analyzing the emotion and keywords in the conversation to highlight some qualitative information. And this is something that we plan to integrate with within our own product later on. So this is something that is coming. We can see it. One advice I can give is just when you start your journey, just make sure that you choose the right tools with the right integration, as Tara said, with good API or pre-built integration that will definitely help. This is what we can see for the tools. And on the trends also in the sales industry, we can see that there is a lot of sales business development schools like the Lion At Aircall, we have created our own sales academy, the Aircall Sales Academy, where we train people to become a sales, because we realized that in France, I don't know if you have the same problem, but in France, we have trouble to find out sales. We see that the image of the sales rep are not really good. Maybe we are still suffering from the person with a suitcase, the suits knocking at your door. So we still have this image in France, and we are suffering from that. So we can see that more and more we have a school for business developer, and maybe after the business school, the people will go for 3 weeks, 3 months in a specific school to be really ready to go to the market and to start that job in the sales. But we can see also that in other industry, product, and tech, and so on.
Yeah. So I love processes. I love automation. So to me, I always say, time is money, right? We've all heard that a million times. Every minute is $1. So I always tell my reps, if you're okay to talk to someone and waste $1, if it's worth it, do it. If it's not, don't. So AI to me is phenomenal. Currently right now, I think there's so much going on. I mean, you've got Drift. I think Drift's a great tool. We actually just recently we're baiting right now and just added it to our trials, where we call it a lead booster. So when people come to your website, an automatic chat will come up. There's no person behind it. It's definitely all automated. But you're by the questions that they're asking, and then the automated responses, you're starting to get some intel on your prospects about people who are coming to your website. So I think that's great for product. I think that's great for marketing. I think that's great, obviously, for sales. So I think that type of thing is definitely coming. You've got your automated dialers. Depends on what type of sell you're doing. If it's just an inside call machine, you've got automated dialers. That's already coming. It's been here for years now. So I think that automation is great. I'm not afraid of it. I love AI. Like, bring it on. Nothing is going to take away. We've all chatted with the robots on different sites. Sometimes it's very frustrating. You're like, just give me a damn person. I just really want to talk to somebody. So it's never going to go away. Like, in my opinion, in sales, you're always going to want to talk to somebody. You're always going to want to get onboarded correctly. So I think that these tools, these AI tools, will enhance that and give us more information to make those phone calls more effective and shorter, so we can go make more money somewhere else. So I love that piece of it. I think AI is great, and I think anywhere where you can put it into your processes, you absolutely should.
Thank you very much. That's a very exciting future ahead for sales people. So we'll now take questions from the audience. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions to ask to our both speakers today. That's always the hard part. Who wants to go first? Yep. I don't know if I have... Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the talk today. It was really interesting. I have one question. Yeah, maybe you see what happens is, like, you can see the differences between talking with a European customer in regards to American one, and a European one is like, he could show an interest in the beginning, but then he just sleep or he doesn't reply for a while. Whereas American, he could tell you, okay, yes, no at the beginning. So how can you encounter that, like, for both of you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think even within Europe, there's within different countries, I think you're gonna get some differences within selling. So one is acknowledging that there are differences. Like, folks in Germany, they love face-to-face. They do much better, actually face-to-face. Some countries are completely fine that they can do, over the phone. So I think there's some differences there. We definitely have in the States, just so you know, the same problem. I think that's a universal problem. They start, they seem interested, and then they just die down. I call that your dark stage, where people start losing interest. So I think, one, if you can get anybody from that country to sell to them, I think that's always better, because there's going to be cultural similarities there, or people who've spent time in that country, or who understand or have sold in that country before. I think that's a great way to fix it. But that particular problem, I think I call them the dark ages, where, in your process, you can almost tell, like, a recipe. I do this, I do this, I do this, and they stop here, and then, like, where the hell do they go? So I think that you can help. What you do is you find out why they go dark, I call them, and then you try to get ahead of those reasons ahead of time. So a lot of it is just simple things. Like in the agenda, when you send out, hey, we're going to meet, like you guys, I'm sure this has never happened to any of you, only me, but you book an appointment with a prospect and they don't show up, right? That's ever happened to you? Oh, okay. Oh, darn, I thought it was just me. So what you do is, one thing that we did, or I found this a couple companies ago, is we started saying, here's the agenda of the things that we think we want to cover, even if it's the first demo. Please tell me your top 3 to 5 things that you want to make sure I cover so it's not a waste of your time. What they do is they respond, and now you're like, great, here's the revised agenda, and guess what it is? Everything that they said they want to do. That really helps people stay engaged, and they want to keep the process. I think what happens is when people feel like this, so that's one, I think, common dark age that happens. The next one is you've gone through, you've had a few demos, you're getting, they like you, you like them. It's kind of like you're not awkward first daters anymore, maybe you're like spend the night or something. But what happens is then all of a sudden they don't want to say no. Right? There's something internally happen. Maybe I call them like, kind of your the prompter or the person in the company that is your coach within there. All of a sudden, they don't want to tell you no. So we've got this great relationship, and now I'm getting some pushback internally. And so make them feel comfortable ahead of time. Look, you may get some pushback on this. Feel free to tell me. I'll help you. I do this and always relate to other people. I had a company just last week that I helped with, and we went through. They were getting some pushback internally. So if that happens, don't be worried about it. Come to me. I'll put together a deck, and I'll make you look really good to your leader, or your CFO, your CEO, whatever. So you're there again as a helpmate. So you try to get ahead of those things of why people. So whatever country it is, whatever. And I'm trying to go full circle, but whatever that is, just try to get ahead of those ahead of time. Like try to figure out what those dark spots are where people stop communicating, and then get ahead of them. And I think you're going to find there's a lot of similarities with a lot of countries.
It's true, and basically the sales cycle is the same everywhere in the world. It's just the speed that change. So, for example, in the US, you can close 2K MRR in 1 day. In the morning they call you, in the afternoon they become a customer. On the French market, it's going to be longer. Of course, we all know that it can take up to several months. So you just need to adapt the speed and the steps in your sales cycle. One thing to help you out is maybe to, after each call, you just tease them with what will happen next, and you schedule this call. You schedule this next step. You don't hang up the call before you have sent, you agree on a date, an hour for the next step, and you send an invitation. Like, don't be afraid to do that. The person is on the phone with you, so they are interested. You just need to impose your cadence and your rhythm, the pace of the sales cycle. You just need to drive them.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So thank you a lot for the talk today. I had a question for Shalom. You mentioned an Aircall Academy to train new sales. Can you give us more information about it?
Sure. So we have created the Aircall Sales Academy maybe two years ago after several batches of SDRs. The goal was to train them and to make them operational very quickly, because we realized that when we trained them, well, people liked it, and the results, the return on investment was getting higher. So in this Sales Academy starts with 3 full intense weeks, where we will cover the basics of sales, the basics of cold calling, but also the basics in the phone industry, because we are working in a specific industry which have complicated terms, so we are training people. And there is academic classes where we just have PowerPoint, it's just learning, but we have also practices. We just make people call, and we imagine different scenarios where you need to argue against an objection. You need to go through the receptionist to speak to someone. So there is different things, and this is for the first 3 weeks. We also cover actually a lot of processes, how you import the leads in your CRM, how you need to add some tasks on the account, normalize those tasks with a name to save some time, you know. If you have 10 tasks during the day and the tasks are just follow-up calls, then you know that your day will be, you will have just to make the calls, they are already scheduled, and you need to just write some emails after the call. But if you have to, you have some tasks which are send the quote, it's going to take your day will be different. So we need to learn them how to do that and how to be organized. Everyone will have his own organization according to that person, but they will have at least one. So we teach them that. So this is for the first 3 weeks, and then during this Aircall Sales Academy is also during your first 2 years at Aircall, we just train you according to the career path you choose. For example, we have people that start as SDRs but move to the partnership team after, and we will help them and train them on different subjects that could help them in their career.
Hi guys, thank you very much. I'm interested in all the process that comes before sales management. I'm thinking about lead generation. I would be curious to know what tools are you using and how do you do acquisition?
So for us, we have created 1 year ago the position called the CIT. It's before the SDR, and they actually gather all the data and create a prospecting list for the SDR. So they don't initiate the contact with the leads. They just create the list. It's an Excel file with some column we ask them to fill up with some information, relevant information to customize then the approach to the lead. For tools, we are using some tools to get the phone number and the emails. We all know Lusha, for example. We have also some basic knowledge. You know, I said integration is a great lever for us in the sales argument and in the sales approach. So, for example, the CIT will go on the website, and if they're using Zendesk for support, most of the time they have the Zendesk chat on the website, so they can do this. You can also make a right-click, inspect the web page, and look for keywords of the CRM or any other tool you integrate with, and maybe there is a trace on the website that you can use. So we teach them all those techniques, and they fill up the document. When it's done, they need to pass it on to the SDR, who is importing it on the CRM.
Just to add to that, I would also say, I mean, I think that whole SDR outbound is a great channel. Some of the best companies I've seen also have a machine of an inbound. So Pipedrive's been around for almost 10 years, and they've only had a sales organization. I think that's so crazy, for the last 2. So they got to over 70,000, or I think it was 60,000 customers with not a sales team. It was all inbound. So there's lots of studies out there you can go look at, lots of companies that have done this. Shopify was one of them. There's a ton. Actually, Zendesk is one of them as well. It's where they started all inbound. You're going to get a lead with great content, good brand, non-brand, paid, non-paid, all that stuff, organic. You're going to have a good marketing team that can really help you get some good leads, some good MQLs, SQLs, and really learn how to qualify them. They may then need to go through an SDR type of funnel or not. So I think that kind of depends on where you're at and what exactly you're selling and who you're selling to. So there's definitely different avenues to get good leads. Yeah.
There was a question at the very end.
I think he's been, that guy in the beard, I feel bad for him because, yeah. I got you.
Oh, you had one. There's first row people. Yeah,
okay. Hi, thanks. One question for both of you. It's, for a small team, when you start in a startup, you have maybe one and yourself, you're the sales guy. Do you have any recommendation, when you start with just a small team of 1 or 2? And then the second question would be also regarding the mix of junior and experienced sales guy. Yeah, what is your maybe.
So I want to make sure.
point
So
on that.
your first question is, when you have a small sales team, what do you recommend you do in what regards? Like just in general?
Yeah, because it seems like right now, Pipedrive and Aircall, you have, I guess, big sales team now. So you have processes and you have CRM.
Yep.
But when you start with just one or two,
Have a process.
Yeah.
You still have to have a process. So great question. When I started at Pipedrive, we only had just a couple in New York. I think 3 in New York, and now we have 7. So it did start small, but you still have to have, when I came in, they had no processes. Drove me crazy. They didn't even have a cadence. You know, on this day you call this lead, on this day you send this email. Have those and test them, right? You can test one cadence, another cadence. So still have a process. I don't care if it's one person, have a process, because that's how you scale it. And that's how you know, and how you know what's working and what's not working. As far as a junior rep, is your definition of a junior rep never done it before, or just maybe fairly new to sales? No, really, yeah. No experience at all. Only 20% of your workforce. So your first, if you have 0 or 1 person, make sure it's someone who's done it for at least a year. Don't get someone who's never done it before, because you're not going to know if it works or doesn't work. Make sure they've done it for at least a year and they have a good track record.
Well, when you are a small team, you will be full cycle, but you still have some processes. For example, I remember when I was at the beginning of Aircall, my process was, well, I'm going to try out what is working and no. So I was sending cadences of email, and I was writing down on an Excel file the name of the cadence, the number of leads, number of opens rate, and answering rate. And I was always changing something, you know, either the subject of the email, or calling, say hi with first name or hi with last name. You know, I just changing to see the results. So that was my process. Indeed, I was alone, but it was still a process. So you just need to have this rigor of organizing things and measure.
Yep. Hi guys, thank you for being here. So my question is about the sales team in general. Do you include customer success, customer support? And if yes, how do you make them collaborate? Because it's not only closing deals, it's also, it can be inbound, as you said. So how do you deal with that?
Great question. So I always say this, whenever anyone's talking about companies at a high level, like, oh, what's your revenue growth? And everyone always talks about what? Their new sales, right? Oh, we're growing 100%. Well, if you're growing 100% or 200%, that's great. But if you're losing 50% on the back end, that's really bad. So I always wish that as a community, we would start saying, what is your revenue growth as a company, and not just new sales? So to that point, I'm not sure what you guys do. Within Pipedrive, I have both customer success and sales. And because they're under one leader, then they're very close aligned. In other companies, I've also had support. I don't have support with Pipedrive, but you could easily, if you have a leader that's done all of them, I would try to lump them as much as you can, including channel, your partner team as well. And so what we have is we have good handoffs. We broke our customer success team into two teams. One is your long-term account manager, but your second one, the very first one that you have, post-sales, is what we call implementation team. So they have a revolving door of new customers every 100 days. So they go through a 6-step process for the first 100 days, because that's usually when you lose your most customers, depends on what you're selling and if it's ARR, MRR, whatever. But it's a very common, if you can get people on the right trajectory early on, then they're normally going to be a customer for a long time. So to summarize that, I would say have them under one leader and have them work together and have them meet on a monthly basis so they hear all the goals, everything they're doing, so it's like you are one team. Great question. Yeah.
So we have pretty much the same organization. We have sales and success. On my side, I'm managing the sales, purely sales, but we are communicate with support and account managers on a regular basis. So when every week, for example, we have a meeting with the account manager to let them know who is coming. If there is 10 big accounts, they need to be aware about it. And we also want them, pay attention, there is this account which is really small, but there is hidden opportunities that I couldn't detect, or maybe it wasn't the right time, so I just give them, pass on the message. And then between support and success, one of the main challenge, I think, is to be able to separate the subject. Because account manager should be able to still make bring some revenue to the company and not be a premium support agent. You should be able to separate the subject, and when you have the account manager, you all know you make the call with your customer. You think that you're gonna switch them to a better plan or add additional revenue, and they say, yeah, well, but we have some issues, so until it's not fixed, I won't talk about it. So the best thing here is to say, okay, well, it's not my skills. I can have the list of all the information, all your issues. I will pass it on to the right person, the support, and with me you're going to take business. And this is a great challenge, and you need to teach your team to be able to split, to make the split between the two.
And document them. Keep them somewhere where everyone can see them, a common repository, and document it.
Definitely.
Good, clear handoffs, I think, is what kind of, yeah.
Hi. So I'm at a very early stage of launching a B2B SaaS. And I'm thinking about the strategy to set up from lead gen to closing deals. And I'm looking at the tools in the market, and it occurred to me that I would choose between Pipedrive and HubSpot. So you have handled responsibilities in HubSpot, and you are at Pipedrive now. I'm not asking what's the best in your view, but what are the good qualities of each one to help me choose, and what's the perspective of each one to choose from HubSpot or Pipedrive for a B2B SaaS startup?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have an affinity for HubSpot because I've known them for a very long time. We shared a same VC back in 2011, 20. So I mean, I've known them for a long time. I think they've got a great product. They're very new into the sales CRM tool. They've been doing it just for a couple of years. So their marketing is fairly good. Their marketing tool is fairly good. So do you have any sales reps right now, or are you guys using anything?
No, I'm very early stage. Like, I'm starting beta testing, and after beta testing, I have to set up the sales cycle.
Yeah. So what I would say is take a look at, from the lead generating tool, take a look at other tools that you can have if you wanted to make sure that because when you're with HubSpot or anybody that has that kind of everything in one, that's what you have to choose. They don't have open APIs to then use MailChimp or, you know what I mean, like other marketing tools that you may want to use. So I love, Marketo is probably my favorite marketing tool. I just think they're phenomenal. So, you're not going to be able to do a great integration with HubSpot and Marketo if that's the one you choose. So pick your top of funnel is always the most important. So pick the tool that you feel like is going to manage that the best, and then pick a tool that's going to complement that really well. Obviously, I could have actually gone and worked at HubSpot, so obviously I picked Pipedrive because I think it's just a superior tool, and I'm not saying that because that's literally why I came. But I think you have to figure out what's right for you. I think there's some people we look at and it's like, oh, you know what, this is better. It's a free tool. You can use HubSpot for free in the beginning, but that's just kind of like how they get you in there that way, because then their pricing model is very expensive after that. So you got to look at the cost of it as well. It's funny, we'll get down to Salesforce and Pipedrive all the time, drives me crazy. And it's, 300-400 people, and they're like, but how can you guys only be $60 a user, and and Salesforce is $200, right? And I use the analogy, I don't know much about cars, but I know enough, I do some research. So if I'm looking at two cars and they look the exact same, but one's 50,000 euros and one's 150,000 euros, I'll be like, there's no way these compare. There's just no way. Like, how could they compare? They do. And so I think you have to look at costs as a good portion of that as well. Yeah, and how is it going to scale, right? Because eventually you don't want to be just a small shop forever, I'm assuming.
Thank you.
Good luck. Yeah, let me know if you want to talk afterwards. I'm happy to help. Yeah.
You go ahead. I'll repeat the question.
Yeah, awesome. So, right now, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
to being the manager of the team. And I'm very young, so it's very new to me. And my question here is, what's the advice that you give me for this transition? And I want to get into one of these issues, because you talked about understanding the motivations behind each of your sales rep. And I think that's a huge challenge. So how do you go about finding that out? Like, what are the piece of advice that you could give me to, just maybe sit down with them and kind of get closer so that I can find that out?
So I'm writing a book on it, so I will definitely check me up on LinkedIn, and when I get it out, I'll send you a free copy, okay?
Perfect, yeah.
So I think one of them is document it, right? Like listen to them. You can tell by the way people respond to certain things. You talked about their goals, and you can learn some really good insights by just talking to your reps. I think that's one of them. The number one thing I would do for you is data. Data. Know your numbers. Know every KPI, every activity, everything look at your data all day long. There should never be a number that surprises you ever. And even if it's bad, that's okay. That's good. You want to know the bad things. So know your data, create a process, and be open-minded and work with the team to collaborate on it. And don't ever forget where you came from. Like, what I mean by that is, every time I ask my sales reps to do something, I'm like, would I do that? Would I want to do that? Would I want to put the data here and then over here and then over here? Would that just irritate me, right? So everything that you're asking your reps to do, make sure, would you do it yourself? And do you think it's effective? So that's...
Maybe one piece of advice here is that you will do mistakes, for sure. And just learn, from time to time, you will have a bad discussion with, a complicated discussion with one of your sales reps. Just learn how you give them feedbacks, positive and bad feedbacks. Just learn about this and don't try to don't make the same mistake the second time.
Yeah, I always say the first one's a learner, the second one's a mistake. If it's the same one, then it's a mistake. But the first one, it's a learner. Great, get all the learners you can. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead. And then we'll take one last question because we are getting close to 2 p.m. So if you have one. Get ready. Okay, there's one over there.
Throw it.
Yeah,
Right.
you can ask your follow-up question. Then
Okay, awesome.
And then you're next.
So it's a bit specific actually because Pipedrive, I've been using it now for 8 months.
Okay.
And it's great. But one of the things that I have come across that I'd say are the points to maybe get better at is actually analytics. I feel sometimes...
for sure. Drives me crazy. Our reporting absolutely drives me to drink, and I don't drink.
Kind of struggle with that.
For sure. No, listen. So I'll tell you guys a really quick story. So I started in October, and we just had a new chief product officer, Vinay, and he started a month before me. And I found it fascinating. I was listening to the marketing team, we've surveyed all these salespeople, our companies, all of our customers, and I'm like, you realize you have salespeople right here. So Vinay and I went into a room in London, and we spent a half a day. That was not planned. And he said, Tara, this is your magic wand. You've been doing this for over 20 years. You're the person we're trying to talk to from our customer base. That's not returning our phone calls or whatever. And I said, okay, here's the things I would want, right? And I listed some things that I think we're missing, which is I like the UI of our analytics. I like it. It's very easy. Other than Salesforce, but I don't like how I can't manipulate and really drill down like I can in Salesforce, right? Because I've used Salesforce for since the beginning of them, okay? I've never used Pipedrive ever. I always recommend them, but I'd actually never used it. So the reporting drives me crazy. So I told them that, and we talked about the reporting and a couple other things. 2 weeks later, we had a big all-company meeting. There was a big roadmap for 2019. Every single thing that I wanted in there was all in the roadmap. So reporting will be changed in maybe 1 quarter. I've seen beta, and I'm happy with it. And I'm really hard on these guys. I had a conversation today, and they're like, the product team's afraid of me, I guess. I'm intimidating, they said. They're like, we're all kind of afraid to talk to Tara. And I'm like, well, get it right. Get it right, and we won't have a problem. So it's coming. I can't say all the things, but, there's some things that no CRM tool does that for 20 years, I'm like, man, it'd be so cool if this could ever happen. So I'm so excited. So if you're thinking about it, and I'm not just saying this as a sales pitch, this is the truth, you guys. If you're thinking about changing CRM tools, 1, it's not that hard, and 2, we're really inexpensive, and our tool is going to be disruptive in this it's going to start shaking up some market share big time. This time next year, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't excited about it.
makes sense.
Yeah. Back there. Yeah. Nice throw.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully your team works as well as you're throwing. That's good.
Hi. So thank you for that last question. So I think it's more of kind of an advice that I'm looking for here. From an individual perspective as a sales, what would you recommend that a sales should be looking within a company or a manager, the characteristics that one should be looking for to improve and keep on growing? And at the same time, what should be the toxic or the fair warnings that a sales should be maybe looking somewhere else or for another manager? Is it clear enough, or should I go again?
Just to make it clear, you want to know regarding the manager position, like what you need to look for in a manager position?
No, rather like what should the sales be looking for within a company that it means that it's a good position to evolve and keep on going, and at the same time, what are the warnings that maybe the position is not fit?
If you're an employee looking to go
exactly.
somewhere.
How to pick and what are the red flags?
Not really pick, but maybe just to evaluate that your actual position is a good one for you to keep on growing and so on.
That's a great question.
Well,
I'm hiring, so if you want.
We are too. Well, you need first to. There is the first thing is that you need to have a fit with the product. Maybe like it should talk to you, and you should understand what it's why it's used and what you can bring. What it brings to the company. This is really helpful to know about it. And then ambition, like the people you will meet in the company, just make sure that they have the right ambition, the same ambition than you, and you feel inspired about those people. Because if you do, then they will help you in overachieve and go over your comfort zone. In your activities, and I'm sure they are human, and they will teach you a lot about it.
Yeah. One thing that I would say, for me, whenever I'm looking at a company, is I agree with you. Do you believe in the product? The second thing that I think you asked, which is a good question I want to make sure, is that if you're in a current role, should you stay? Right? Is that what you said? Or like, is there future growth kind of thing? Was that part of it?
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's that, but also more on a like bigger image of it. Like, how do you keep on growing from 5-10 years perspective?
Yeah, that's great. So I think that when you're looking for a role, I always say that there's just I actually ask this in my interview questions all the time. I'll say, what's the most important thing? They're all important, but out of the top 3 things, what's the most important to you and why? The manager you work for, the team you work with, or the company you represent. And I think you have to figure out what your #1 priority is out of those 3 things, and then make your decision from that. So for me, it's so much about what company am I representing, right? As if I'm out there talking about these companies, I have to believe in it, right? My last company, if you want to look up on LinkedIn, I did not believe in that company. I had to leave quick because I just didn't believe in it, right? I didn't believe in the model, and so I think that for me, so. Younger in my career, it was who was my manager, because that to me was how I grew. So for me, it was all about who was mentoring me, who was I. Why was I a sponge? Like, I learned by observing. So do I want to be like that leader, or some better lessons, or what do I not want to be like in that leader, like, right? So whenever I'm coaching a first-time manager, I tell them, like, go back to all the leaders you've had, write the things you loved about them and the things you hated about them. Don't do the things you hated about them, right? So it just depends on what's important to you. So I would figure that out, and then understand that growth doesn't happen overnight, right? I've been doing this for a long time. I have a 26-year-old son who thinks like he should be a VP next year. I'm like, hold your horses, buddy. You know, it's not going to happen in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It takes time. So in a generation where everything is instant, right? It takes time in your career. So be kind to yourself and allow yourself growth. Don't have unrealistic expectations. Like, set realistic expectations. Happy to, if you want to reach out to me, whatever, happy to talk more in depth about that for time's sake.
That's pretty wise advice for closers. I guess the last thing for me to do is to thank you both.
Thank
a
you,
lot. It
everybody.
was very
Thank
insightful.
you so much.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Shalom. It was amazing.
Que la famille.